wingman and Chief Technical Officer Dieter Staudinger back with you for this week's episode of Clear for Takeoff Live, Fearless Flight Live. What are we called? Oh my God. You can tell my mind is not in the right state. And so we're going to talk about how you can get, and I don't mean Arizona, although that would be a great metaphor, but fear flying is about state of mind, as is much of our life and our attitude and all that. So we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. But this is our weekly show for anybody who's afraid to fly, for anybody who knows somebody who's afraid to fly and wants to direct them in our direction, and for anybody who just likes talking about airplanes, because we do a lot of that as well. And we always refer you to our Facebook group, our Fearless Flight Birds of a Feather. And one of our good buddies, Eric, Nat, joined our Birds of a Feather group. So
excellent.
Yeah. Anyway, this is our group, really active group for people who are serious about getting over their fear flying. It's a place where you can go give support, you can get support, and you can get questions answered, and you can always get a hold of any of the three of us if you can't get us in any of the other normal routes that we offer out there. Tonight we have a poll question. Just wondering, I mean, the stuff, it just keeps getting better, right? First it's the fear flying, then it's the COVID-19, and now the protests are added to the mix there. So I'm just curious, how does the addition of the protest affect you and your fear flying with everything out there? I mentioned, highlighted, we're going to talk about state of mind here in just a minute. And we got some not directly related to aviation news, kind of a quiet week in aviation. Quiet week in everything. Like last week, it was nobody noticed the Pakistani air crash because of all the COVID-19 stuff. And now this week, nobody notices COVID-19 so much because we're all worried about the protests going on here. So anyway, all right. So let's get into it. I want to just I grabbed some highlights from the news out here, and the first one is the story called "The Man in the Iron Lung," and Dieter's going to put this in the link to these articles. We got about 4 articles that we want to on tonight, and the one about the iron lung, Eric, you were talking about, you read that. What'd you think about that, Eric?
I was weeping.
First of all, I should highlight, this is about a man who has polio. He's a year older than I am. And it talks about his life, and it's a compelling story. And Eric went through the stories as well. So
we posted this up because this is one of the 2 people left in the world using an iron lung to breathe. And our generation, my generation, and forward, it's like polio. Yeah, that's that horrible disease, but there's a vaccine, so nobody worries about it. But Ron's generation and prior, that was a big deal. And if that didn't kill you, the amount of people it maimed and left paralyzed for life was stunning. And this guy overcame, taught himself to breathe to an extent, and was paralyzed and overcame all kinds of stuff, even though he was stricken with it, and by all rights should have died many years earlier and many times over. And boy, you read that and you say, I don't even know what tough is after you read about that guy. It's a stunningly inspirational story.
Yeah, he has an attitude with a capital attitude. I mean, it's amazing. I get goosebumps even listening to Eric talk about the story that I've also because it is, and I in the 2nd grade when they came out with the polio vaccine, and it was epidemic in the country, not unlike the COVID-19. Eric mentioned, a different kind of a death sentence. COVID-19, you seem to be either you get it, and if you're in the wrong group or the wrong whatever, it gets you, or you don't get it. But polio was if you got it, it just ruined your life. And an iron lung is something that I think they're down to like 2 in the world or something like that. It was incredible. And this was basically an altitude chamber that sealed around your neck, and the rest of your body was in there, and it caused your lungs to take in air and exhale. Without that, you died. And so I think you'll find the article interesting. And that we're going to segue from that into attitude. Can you imagine this guy's attitude? He was firing. He at that time there were no provision. They wouldn't even let him take high school by correspondence. He had to petition the high school in order to get him to do that, and he had to prove that he could have somebody that would take care of him and all that, and make that happen. And he went on to become a lawyer, a successful attorney, I think, wasn't he, Eric?
Yeah.
And and live essentially a normal life. When you worry about how someone took the time to teach him how to do this special type of breathing, because it has to happen up here because it couldn't happen with his lungs. He basically became his own iron lung for much of his life. So very inspiring. Anyway, so we talk about a lot with life is not being what happens to you, but about the story you tell yourself about what happens. And we have this formula, E plus R equals O. It says that, something happens. It's your response and the story you tell yourself that yields the outcome. And that story depends on your state of mind. And this is another level that I've raised our discussion to. And because state of mind determines you can see that little graphic there, which I'll go through here. You have a good or a positive state of mind, you do good things, you think good things. You have a bad state, bad things happen to you, or your perception is bad. And life boils down to putting yourself in either a good state of mind or a bad state of mind. And being in a good state of mind gives you access to your full faculties. If the more positive your state of mind, the more resources you have. And a bad state of mind literally limits your access to mental resources and resourcefulness. And you could say that the more stressed we are, the lower the quality of our state of mind. And I mentioned that when you have, the better your state of mind, the greater the access to resources. And that brings up a thing I got from Tony Robbins. Is fail because they lack resources. They fail because they resourcefulness. And so that's what Clear for Takeoff and Fearless Flight is all about. It's about how you can help find new resources by virtue of hanging around us, or more importantly, you can find those resources that already exist within you to do that. So put that slide back up if you would, Dieter, just for 1 second here. I'll just go through that quickly here.
Same slide?
Yeah. And so when you look at that IR up there is called internal resources or in state of mind. Okay. And that's where the mental dialogue comes from that you notice so much. You can't get on that airplane. When they close the door, it drives me crazy. Your brain that tells you little stories makes up those, we call them your mental. And you can see symbolically, we have our little elephant and rider there, our little buddies there, and they represent the two frames of mind. One, the elephant, which is larger in concept and scope. It makes about 95% of the decisions that we make. It's intuitive, it's quick acting, but it doesn't necessarily base its decisions in facts. It does a good job, and it came from our survival instinct, our need to make decisions quickly. And the rider represents that little part of our brain, the logical, the more analytical, the slower acting part that can help you be more resourceful. And the goal is, and that's what breathing does, it allows you to slow down your activity, your mental activity, and it allows you to stay out of chaos in it. But you can see there's an interaction between not only our internal references up there, our IR with our state of mind. So our internal reference affects our state of mind, and our state of mind affects our internal reference. Okay. And then same way with our physiology, how you're feeling physically. If you're anxious, if you're not feeling full, you're hungry, you're tired, angry, lonely, afraid, all those things, your physiology also affects our state of mind. So that's why, watching your intake of caffeine and other stimulants that are going to cause you to be more anxious can affect your state of mind. And all of those go into producing your behavior. Whatever our state of mind is, it determines our beliefs, and our beliefs determine our behavior there. So staying in a good state of mind boils down to a couple of things. Like I said, the internal representations are the stories that we tell ourselves. And this is a map of the territory, both your inner and outer worlds. And like a map, it's not the map of the territory, but rather your mind. So when Eric and I are flying and we use charts, whether they're in instrument charts or whether they're visual representations of the world, okay, that's a representation, okay, but that isn't the map that's in our brain, even, because we make interpretations based on that picture that we have in front of us. So that's the way we are. We there's an illusion that what you see and what goes in through your eyes is actually the real world out there, and it really isn't. There are some conventions that we all agree on. We generally, unless you're colorblind, we look at blue and we say we agree that that's blue or red or colors and things like that. And there are a lot of other conventions that we have that we agree on, but the map of the territory is not the map in your mind, and they're affected by visual representations, what we see, auditory representations, what we hear, kinesthetic representations, what we feel, and what we say to ourselves, those internal representations up there, the stories that we tell ourselves. And the things that you see in your mind, what you hear in your head, what you feel viscerally, and what you say to yourself represent your state of mind. And again, if I'm in a good state of mind, I think about good things. If I put myself into a good state, that opens me up to everything else that's good about me. And I mentioned about your state of mind is our physiology. So if you're in a nervous situation, if you're tired, if you're anxious, that's going to affect your state of mind, and it's going to affect your decisions, your behavior, and it's going to represent, the success that you have in there. And I teach the members of the class to do a little activity. We have them stand up and pretend that they're depressed, and slumped over, kind of slouching like that. And if you want to do that, it's great, because you can actually see how literally your body English, your body language can actually not only affect your state of mind, but it can affect people around you in many ways. And then this thing about our physiology and our physical state are linked to our state of mind. And when we're in a positive state of mind, you literally take positive actions. And so I just wanted to kind of review that. That's the essence of what we teach in the course, and how we help people find tools and resources and strategies and put them into action in their life. The last thing I want to do is talk about the communication. And many of you may have either heard of this or seen this. If you want to put that last communication slide up there, Dieter. There was a study, long time ago, and they said that only 7% of the meaning in a communication comes from the words. I mean, look how small it is. And going beyond that, 38% comes from my tone of voice. So if I just sit here and I talk like this and I'm just kind of hard to get excited about anything, that affects the listener. That affects the message that I'm sending out there. And the last thing is literally the body language. And we talked about that, the physiology and the body language. So imagine, we all, if you've seen this, even if you haven't, is it really 7%, 38 and 55? Who knows? Who cares for that matter? But they do represent generalities in terms of how little is conveyed in terms of the words that we talk about, and how much is conveyed in the other 93%, the tone of voice and the physiology and the body language. So imagine, this is one of the things that I just heard this recently, and I thought it was worth mentioning in this context, is what's the tone of voice that you talk to yourself in? Okay, that's another huge factor, and so why would we think that my level of excitedness, for example, or enthusiasm as I'm presenting here, or whether I'm just kind of bummed out and waiting just to get this show over, and I'm thinking about my mom, she's going through some stuff right now, and all that. Why would I not think that tone of voice does not work inwardly as well as it does outwardly? So those are some things that I just wanted to review with you tonight and make a case for that. Now, so let's go on to the other story, or the not the other stories, but the other things that we had to cover tonight. Okay.
Okay. Do you want to go to that follow-up virtual reality story?
Yes. Yeah, please, Dieter.
All right.
I would love to see the communication slide reworked for text, like what percent of the words, what percent of the screaming caps, and what percent are emojis and other symbols.
That's a great. That would be a great study, actually.
Okay, so these are some gee whiz items that found in the news this week in lieu of our aviation news, and this was a study that came out. I found fascinating. I've had many people talk to me about virtual reality over the years. It runs, but I've heard about $2,000 is the bottom end of it. You can spend a lot more if you want to. And people have had varying levels of success that they've reported to me. And so this was a study. This is the abstract here. It says that it reports the 12-month follow-up from people who did. They had a control group. And another group that got nothing out of it. And basically they found about the same level of success for people who use virtual reality versus those who just use standard psychotherapy and things like that. And I think that I'm looking for the
But they call it exposure therapy, standard exposure.
Yeah, exposure therapy.
Right? So
yeah.
That's what they were controlling.
And that's what we do. We really do a mix of that. We use both psychotherapeutic types of interventions, and we use exposure therapy. And the interesting thing that I found the most interesting was the people who got nothing didn't do better.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you don't do anything, you can pretty much expect the same results. It's going to be the worst. And all, I haven't talked to her other than in a Facebook message. I do want to report that for many of you who have been active in our Facebook group there, you might have been watching Laura Trainer. Laura has been threatening to come to the class for the past 2 years. And I finally encouraged her to sign up for the 201 class that we did. She got all the materials. She wasn't able to make it all. One weekend was Mother's Day, and she was down here in Arizona. But she had to fly from Arizona back to New Jersey, and she flew last Tuesday night. I just heard from her today that she had I call it a non-event. And, I'll try to get her on here to talk to you about her experience there. But we're really proud of Laura. I wanted to do a shout out
and Laura had never flown herself, so she actually
ever in her life.
Yeah,
that's right. That's true. Had never done that. So anyway, so congratulations, Laura. So and the next article we had is one that talks about.
Yeah. That's the comic. That's a funny one.
Oh yeah, the one with the
So is it safer to fly or to drive? That's a really
and this
good question.
It's kind of they use a cartoon type of graphic in the headline here, but I really recommend that you read this. And Eric saw, he was kind of blown away by it was a seriously well done article talking about the pros and cons of both. And he has to exercise, and his wife Deb, who is in treatment for cancer, just to be very serious about this. And so just share with everybody what you're sharing with me, Eric, about you are you would be biased, but you're actually looking at the reality of it.
Right. So I was looking at that, and I've been thinking about it anyway. I live in Phoenix. I would like to go to central Minnesota in the summer to my brother's cabin, who is also retired and not around people, and we have a great week and a half there every year just hanging out. And I'd like to take my wife Deb with me, who is battling ovarian cancer, and she's doing really well, but it's an incredible fight, and her labs have come up lately. Her immune system's doing well, but obviously anything that increases risk for her is a consideration for me. So I'm thinking about that all the time when I'm out, and I'm weighing that against staying here, look at the four walls, or going, and I really want to go. But the variables for that problem, for driving, for length of time, how many times do you have to buy gas? How many times do you have to touch a gas pump? Where do you have to eat? What are you going to eat? Hotel rooms. Are you going to be on the ground floor? Are you going to ride up and down an elevator with people? Stay away from a buffet. I mean, it's just immense number of variables. And the longer you travel, the more of these causal factors you'll enter into it, as opposed to the airplane. If you can find a fairly lightly loaded flight and be as just as possible as the airport and get to wherever you're going in 2 or 3 hours, it was going to take 2 or 3 or 4 days. I'm leaning towards, for me, that's worth it. If I can find an empty flight and then make a drive where I don't stay in a hotel and have that much over the road exposure, that and like Ron, I had a full career here, so I'm spoiled rotten. So a 1,600-mile drive is equivalent to me getting a Boy Scout hiking merit badge by walking to the South Pole. That doesn't appeal to me a whole lot. But there's risk factors with both, with all the kinds of things you would contact with the increased amount of time driving, as opposed to decreased amount of time flying. And just as we talk about in class all the time, the straight risk of being on the road as opposed to the risk of flying, accident-wise and that kind of thing, the risk of flying is nothing compared to the risk of being on the road.
Yeah, and one of the things they mentioned is even though it's unlikely in a car, it's more likely in a car to be in an accident, even a little fender bender, and you end up going to using medical care, or the people coming to treat you, there's that they are what they are, and there's just a lot of uncertainty in that. So, but like I said, or what we both said, we thought it was a really well done article and worth your time in reading. So, and then the last thing we wanted to finish up with tonight, other than the question there, has to do with how we are going to change in this post-COVID coronavirus world in there. And they talk about why, about risk intelligence and how we'll do that. And they use as an example, just grocery shopping. So we all reach a comfort level, and because we all, if you're like us down here in Arizona, you have to wear a mask. You're supposed to stay 6 feet away from everybody. But the things now that will change the way we think and the way we operate, such questions as, what day do I go? What time do I go? Those are already factors. I know down here in Arizona, we have senior hours when the store is open only to people 60 years old and older. They put in here as a question, which supermarket do I go to? Chain A is busier, or maybe chain A is busier than chain B at certain times of the day. Do I factor that in? And the other question is, what if otherwise chain B is the one that I wouldn't go to, but it has the cheaper prices, over time. So there's a lot of factors there. Do you find, I know you've talked to me again about this with Deb and in your concerns. I have the same concerns with my mom. I have to actually think about that a lot more before I go carting off to the grocery store. So.
Yeah, and I've started avoiding senior hours because I thought, well, I'll go down there because I can go in for the seniors, but you go down there and it looks like the mosh pit of an AC/DC concert because we have more seniors here than we have total people in Arizona. It's like, oh, that's not going to work. So I have to let them go in and run through, and then get in there late morning when everybody else is working, go in 9 or 10, and I find the store to be much more empty and safer to shop in. That precludes if you're going after anything especially unique, but if you're not, and most stuff is stocked without not including special items, you can get it. So, but I can avoid the crowds much better doing that than I can lining up for senior hour anymore.
Yeah, I had a similar experience here too, just like you. It's even though it was allocated to special hours for seniors, that's when the lines would accumulate because all of the old farts like me were waiting in line. And so I found it was just easier to go later on in the day when you didn't have to stand in line, at least in the heat down here. So anyway,
I will say that I have made a lot of use of when you go on Google Maps and you go into check in with a store, they have a feature where they show you their busy hours, and
right.
I can tell you, as somebody who pays attention to that, I can share that this has really changed for a lot of stores, and how the busy hours are distributed now compared to what it was pre-bat, as Eric likes to say.
Yeah. And what Dieter got is the essence of the article is that it's changing the way that we function and we think. And which is, that's the theme tonight is, changing your state of mind. And that's why one of our slogans is you got to change the way you think about flying. Flying is never going to change. Not the part that you want to change, no turbulence, no weather, pilots that don't make mistakes. All of that is pretty much fixed in there. And we manage our risk using the same kinds of strategies that you are now using to keep yourself safe regarding the COVID-19 virus. So anyway, I just thought that they all kind of meshed together tonight there. And I don't know, I forgot I took out the slide with the actual question that I put in there, but we did pose to people if anybody.
So let me I can just read it. So does the addition of the COVID-19 pandemic and now the protests add to your anxiety, or do they provide a distraction? So that's, and, my heart goes out to all of you guys, because there's a lot of unprocessed emotions and a lot of rawness, and God, I wish everybody stays safe.
We just keep thinking up ways to take our minds off of the problem of last week, apparently. So I hope it all works out for us in the long run. So anyway, that's all we had for tonight. We appreciate all of you who continually show up here. We hope that you are safe out there. And any final words, Dieter?
No, I'm good.
Eric?
No.
Okay.
Unbelievably.
All right. So we'll let you go, and thanks for joining us again tonight. And we hope to see you back here again next week for Fearless Flight Live. So thanks a lot, and have a great week, and stay safe, everybody.
Thank you.